High-flying Matildas impressed instead of international friendlies at home. Alex Condon joins exclusive list of Australian March Madness winners. And the puck drops for season 2025 of the AIHL. This is Sportswatch. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Sportswatch. Joining me this week is not Leonardo Puglisi, it is Lachlan Sheriff. Shezza, how are we doing today?
Yeah, doing well, thanks, Tin. Good to be back.
It is good to be back. Obviously, stuff has happened in the last couple of weeks. Some of us have dropped in and out of episodes, but regardless, Sportswatch rolls on and we roll on. And so I think we just get the ball rolling with the Matildas. And obviously, they played two international friendlies this past week against South Korea. Two very good results, you can say. First one, a 1-0 win in Sydney, and a second one, a pretty comprehensive, impressive win, 2-0 up in Newcastle. So, Shezza, I'll just ask you straight up. What are your thoughts on the performances by the Tillies?
Yeah, pretty good. 2 wins, can't complain. The first win, obviously, in Sydney, yeah, we had an own goal. Probably wasn't the best game for either team, but look, a win's a win, and you take that. And then you go to Newcastle for the second game, and I think that's a pretty good result, 2-0. You got a goal from Mary Fowler, a goal from Caitlin Torpey. I think we looked much better in that game. We had, more possession, more shots on target than the Koreans, so yeah, can't complain with either of them. Two pretty good results, especially after, a rough She Believes tournament. You go back to last year, a rough Olympics. So pretty good. We've got some players back now. Obviously, Mary Fowler scored in the second game. She hasn't played much recently for Matilda, so it's good to see her back. Even Sam Kerr, who didn't play, but she's now back around with the team, so that's good as well. So we're starting to get a few players back. We're starting to get some form back. So yeah, after a rough few months, we definitely needed that.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned the rough few months, obviously, the She Believes Cup at the start of the year, which wouldn't have gone to plan. And of course, the Olympics campaign last year, that was probably the biggest talking point for a while. And, it's good to pick up some form, especially in the lead up to, what's going to be a big Asian Cup campaign, especially an Asian Cup campaign at home. So it's good to beat some, fellow Asian opposition, even if it is, South Korea.
For sure. I wouldn't look past South Korea. I think they're probably still a pretty good side. Not the best side we'll face in the Asian Cup, obviously. That'll, I'm sure, be Japan. They've been very good for many years now. But no, nonetheless, the South Koreans are a pretty good team, and I'm happy to get 2 wins against them, especially as we look into the Asian Cup next year, which, just like the Home World Cup was 2 years ago, it's definitely going to be another chance to really grow football and women's football in this country, really create some more fans. So looking forward to it. I think we're definitely taking the right tracks to getting back into our best form and going into the home Asian Cup with a hopefully good form.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, the big thing is, those are two pretty good results under an interim coach, of course. Obviously, Gustafsson left at the end of the, I believe at the end of the Olympics, if I remember correctly. Obviously, a couple of names are floating around the media. Obviously, the main one is Joe Montemurro, and of course, even John Aloisi, his name is floating around. But yeah, if you'd imagine just getting a head coach in there will eventually just hopefully stabilize things to come for the Matildas and help us pick up some form.
Absolutely. My first choice has been Montemurro. He's been class, his entire career in coaching. He's been with the Arsenal ladies. He's been Juventus. He's now at Lyon. I'd love to see him back in this country with the resources to create a great national team. Aloisi is a bit out there for me. I don't think he's really done much in women's football, but nonetheless, the results speak for themselves. He's had an incredible season with the Western United men's team. So if it was him as well, I still think we're able to build pretty well and hopefully create a good team with him. But no, either way, I'm just looking forward to getting that permanent manager in the door because, look, I love Tom Serrani. He's been great for us over the years. I'm glad he came back and helped us out when we needed him, but we definitely do need a younger manager and a manager who's actually going to stick around for the long term. So looking forward to seeing who it is. I think that's our last step we have to take until we're ready to start a new transition period. And yeah, just really excited to see who we are pick in the end.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think we'll leave it there with the Matildas. We'll keep the ball rolling with the NPL. And obviously, it's starting to take shape in most states now. Both of us live in Victoria. I think we were both fortunate enough to get out to some games. So, Shezza, you were there with me on Friday night when Avondale took on Dandenong Thunder. So, we'll have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the Dandenong City Avondale game was pretty good for me. I thought I'd just take the bus out there. Public transport out to Dandenong isn't great, but nonetheless, I managed to be there for a Friday night kickoff. And yeah, go game. I thought Dandenong City were actually quite good. I didn't expect them to be as good. I think you look at the Avondale team this year, they're probably the best team, or they have been the best team in the league. I think a lot of teams sometimes go up against them and immediately think, okay, we have to go defensive, like just try and grind down 0-0 draw. Whereas I don't think Dandenong City played like that. I think they definitely attacked, they definitely looked competent, and they were unlucky not to get a goal. I think on another night they definitely get a goal or two. But as for Avondale, well done. That's a championship performance right there. Dandenong City were playing them hard. They had a lot of fight, a lot of courage, but Avondale got the job done. It was 3-0 in the end. So well done to them because those are the type of performances that you need to win a grand final at the end of the year. So great work for Avondale.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, my apologies. That was Dandenong City, not Dandenong Thunder, as before, as I stated. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it was a good performance for Avondale. And I think what caught me was, most of their goals, most of Avondale's goals came on the counter attack, which is obviously that's how Avondale like to play. They like to move the ball quick. They like to move it, through the wings up into the box and get quick crosses in, that sort of thing. It's how Avondale like to play. And I think even though they were arguably on the back foot for most of the game, fair play to Dandenong City. They played really well and they pressed really hard. Avondale just looked almost unstoppable almost every time they got a run through the box. Anytime they got a chance through the box, you just thought to yourself, wow, they could really get something here. And it was just a great performance by them for sure.
Absolutely. And you look back a couple of years ago when Avondale won the grand final, that's always been how they've played. It's always been the Avondale way. It's definitely worked from this year, aside from that little blip they had against the Dandenong Thunder when they lost 2-1. They've, I think, won every game this season. So really good form from them. And they've got a style of play. They've got some great players, a great manager. So really looking forward to seeing how they pan out this year because I think right now they have to be the favourite to go all the way and win it all come September.
Yeah, 100%. And the other game that I managed to get out to was St Albans Saints at Melbourne Victory up in Bundoora, the home of the Matildas. Obviously, my first time seeing the Victory team live, and I have to say I was pretty thoroughly impressed. A 3-2 win for them in the end. It was a back and forth affair, very close. You couldn't most the teams weren't really separated by much, and that sort of reflected in the scoreline in the end. But ultimately, yeah, it was a good win for Victory. Obviously, the youth team of the A League side producing some good young talent, and ultimately it was a good win for them. So we'll bring up the tables of the current NPL leagues around the states. Obviously, it's starting to take shape for a lot of leagues now. Obviously, Victoria, New South Wales been in it for a couple of weeks, and Capital Football starting up this week, which means I believe every league in the country is now underway. So obviously, exciting times coming up ahead for football, and particularly for football in this country when we've got league leaders fighting for spots in the inaugural championship.
For sure. It's all shaping up now, having all the leagues underway. Finally, got all eight of them playing. It's definitely great to see Capital football. I didn't get to see any of it, unfortunately, this weekend, but I did hear there were definitely some good games there. So that's another one to look out for. You look at, NPL New South Wales, NPL Queensland, NPL South Australia, just everywhere you look, there's some great teams and some really, plucky teams fighting to an inaugural championship team come the end of the year. So there's definitely a lot to look out for right now around the country with NPL football because it's exciting times. There's a lot of teams out there who are playing, attacking, exciting football who want to be not only, win their NPL league, but maybe end up as one of the first championship teams ever. So look, it's a great league, whatever one you're watching. There's definitely a local team for you to get out to, and I'd recommend giving it a watch.
Yes, 100%. And of course, the Australia Cup's starting to get underway as well. So endless supply of state football for you to watch no matter where you live around the country. So we highly recommend you get out to there. But we'll move on now to the AFL. Obviously, we are about 4 weeks in now, I believe. And well, we're starting to get a better image of how the league's setting up, how the teams' seasons will pan out. Obviously, we're coming up on the cusp of Gather Round as well. So yeah, I'll ask Sheza, did you catch any game last round that caught your attention? Any games that or any team that in particular that's really starting to catch your eye?
I did for sure. It was Carlton Collingwood for me on the Thursday night. The big fixture, probably the biggest game in the regular season for the AFL. The one you definitely look for on the calendar when the fixtures drop. It was Thursday night this time, and look, was it a great game of football? No, it wasn't. It was a great first quarter. I'll give them that, and then after that, it kind of fell apart. But no, good win for Collingwood. They've definitely bounced back after the rough start they had an opening round against GWS when they got blown out by over 50 points, I believe. So Warren have bounced back. They're now 10-1. They're looking pretty good, but as for Carlton, they've got to pick up some form soon because not only are they, I think they're 16th right now, just behind West Coast and Melbourne, but they don't even have their first round pick this year. So it's really not looking good for them, and they're going to have to find some form somewhere because this is turning into a really bad season.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned it for Carlton. Obviously, you mentioned it's being such a huge game and the gravity of the AFL, and it's one of those games where you kind of ignore any sort of context coming to the season. It's sort of a game that sort of has its own history, like around itself. It's a game that has its own moment in itself. It's its own big moment in a way. But regardless of how you see the season for Carlton, which is poor enough, already being 0-4, like it wasn't the performance that they wanted to put out there. It wasn't the performance that players would have wanted, management, coaching would have wanted, and especially not the one the fans would have wanted. So ultimately, is a pretty poor performance for them. Hopefully, they can turn around, pick it back up because Carlton, as a team, when they do well, it's better for the AFL, especially when we have a big fan base doing well. But ultimately, Collingwood were just incredible on the night. Everyone knows that. Even struggling through the rain and the weather, you'd still admit that they looked great and they absolutely fought through the conditions.
For sure, those are games. Sometimes they're not always going to be the easiest. You've got to grind them out. You've really got to dig in deep. But well done to Collingwood because that's what they did, and they deserve to win that one.
100%. And we'll talk about another game that I managed to catch in the round, and that was St Kilda versus Port Adelaide, which is Port Adelaide versus St Kilda up in Adelaide, obviously. And I mean, all you have to say, other than it was a standard result for St Kilda, a 17-point win. But ultimately, I think you've got to say it now. St Kilda sitting at 3-1. They look exceptional this year. I mean, obviously, they're a team that maybe the last couple of years have sort of been sitting around mediocrity. Maybe haven't been the most, spectacular team. But Ross Lyon has kicked them into a completely different gear this season, haven't they?
Yeah, Rossi's got them playing. Rossi's got them playing some good football at the minute. They're definitely looking good. I did not expect this at all. I had them probably 12th, 13th. I did my predictions at the start of the year, but no, they're in some good form. I think you look at their list. There's definitely a lot of players there who, some younger players mixed in with some older veterans as well. All of which are trying to prove a point because I don't think anyone looked at St Kilda at the start of the year and said, okay, there's a lot of good talent there. There's maybe people gave them one or two A grade as the best, but I don't think anyone really had them being this good in terms of talent. So well done to them because they're really showing right now that this isn't just, a fun year where things look good in 5 years. Things are looking good now for St Kilda. And even if they don't win the grand final this year, it's obviously a very high bar, they still should make finals. They might even make top 4 at this point. So it's definitely going to be a very good year for the Saints fans out there. And well done to them because Port Adelaide in Adelaide, not an easy place to win, but they got it done in the end. So good win for them.
Yeah, 100%. We'll throw up that AFL table now. Obviously, like we mentioned, we've had a couple of weeks now. We're starting to get the better picture of how these teams are shaping up. Obviously, it's Hawthorn, Brisbane, Gold Coast, and GWS at the top. Rounding out the 8 is Adelaide, Collingwood, St Kilda, Geelong. Just outside of it is Sydney, the Bulldogs, and Fremantle. And then sitting at the bottom 4 there, it's Richmond, Carlton, Melbourne, and West Coast. So I mean, we're getting to the point now where it's starting to take shape, and we're definitely starting to get the bigger picture regarding where these teams could sit, especially in relation to how their seasons will play out and the race for finals.
Absolutely. It's been a great start to the season so far. There's a lot of teams, I'd say, even outside of the top 8 now, who are still content. I mean, maybe everyone except Carlton, Melbourne, and West Coast are feeling somewhat okay to pretty ecstatic with how their season has started so far. So there's a lot of teams there who are either trying to win a flag or trying to make that top 8. So I'd recommend tuning in because it's going to be a very interesting season. And we've got Gather Round up next soon as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Gather Round plays out. It's a great weekend. And it's going to be interesting to see who comes back home to their original states with the 4 points.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, we'll leave it there, and we'll head across the ocean now to a big story in the United States. Obviously, March Madness, one of the biggest sporting events in America, one that started to pick up a lot of traction in Australia as well. Obviously, the Florida Gators champions at the men's tournament, but in amongst that, Alex Condon, an Aussie in amongst the ranks, who has managed to share in the accolades. So obviously you're the basketball guy here. I'll let you take it away. Just give us the roll down on how on this incredible story.
Yeah, look, March Madness this year was interesting. Maybe not as many big upsets as we'd usually like or usually expect, but nonetheless it was a good tournament. Just to quickly touch on the women's tournament, that was pretty good. Once Juju Watkins went down for USC, you knew it was either going to be UConn or South Carolina who got it done. In the end, it was UConn quite convincingly, so well done to them. As for the men's tournament, like I said, it was Florida who took it home in a nail-biting victory against Houston. And, I mean, what can you say? They've had a great team, players like Walden Clayton Jr., just an incredible squad. But like you mentioned, there was an Aussie on that team. It's Alex Condon, who he played a pretty crucial role, especially in the final game against Houston. So, well done to him. He's had an incredible college career, and he's definitely got some options ahead of him because if he doesn't get drafted in the upcoming NBA draft, he'll actually go to Collingwood and become a ruckman at Collingwood. So he's definitely got his options open for him. I would say he gets drafted now. I think he's had a good enough tournament and a good enough season to get drafted by an NBA team, but nonetheless, he's definitely making us Aussies proud.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of making Aussies proud, I mean, he joins a long list of, decorated Aussie athletes who's gone overseas, regardless of if his career continues in basketball or not. I mean, you talk about, I mean, obviously Alex Condon in March Madness, but obviously you talk about players like, Liam Hendricks in Major League Baseball. You talk about the long list of decorated footballers we've had that played in Premier League or in other leagues in Europe. We talk about, guys like Nathan Walker, Ben Simmons, Dyson Daniels, just a long list of Australian athletes who've, managed to go overseas and, maybe some of their careers don't pan out or go as well as they like, but regardless, they put Australia on on an international stage, and they certainly brings a lot of pride for us, especially as sports fans.
For sure. And I think even if you just focus on college sports, we've had quite the influx of talent coming through the college ranks recently. You look at, we talked about it a few months ago when we first had our show. We talked about the punters in the college football scene and how good they're doing. If you look at women's college basketball, Georgia Amore had an incredible season. She'll now be a top pick in the WNBA draft. And then back over to men's basketball, Alex Condon winning the national championship, probably going to be an NBA draft pick. So, no, we're doing pretty well right now all around the world, but even just in college sports, which has kind of picked up recently. I think NIL has definitely helped with the college sports scene. So good to see college sports back booming, and definitely good to see the Aussies over there doing well.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll move on to the next point of topic now, staying in the States, where we'll talk about probably the biggest story in world sports at the moment. Alexander Ovechkin, who has gone from maybe one of the NHL's perennial great goal scorers to the greatest goal scorer of all time, 895. He's done it. He's reached the tally. He's beaten Wayne Gretzky. And I mean, you've just got to say it is a massive sporting achievement, no matter which way you look at it.
For sure. I mean, I'm not a huge hockey guy, but whenever anyone hears the word hockey, you think Wayne Gretzky. He is Mr. Hockey, literally. He had such an incredible career. He had 894 goals, and for a long time it felt like no one was ever going to beat that. But well done to Ovi because he got it done in the end. I mean, 895 and counting. It's an incredible achievement. Unfortunately, I didn't see him overtake it because that was at like 3 a.m. in the morning for Australians, a pretty rough time slot. But I did see him tie the record at 894, and well done to him because he's had such an incredible career in Washington. They clearly love him in Washington. They're having such a good season, and Ovi is the heartbeat of that team right now. So congratulations to him because that's a record which, I know we said it about Gretzky, but I'll say it again now, might never be overtaken.
I mean, yeah, you speak of the Capitals. I mean, Washington, they're having a flying season as well, just to add on top of this. So, I mean, I believe they're second in the Metropolitan Division. They are third or fourth or somewhere in the top four of the league division. So just outside of the President's Trophy. I mean, just a couple of days out from the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I mean, with Ovi's main personal goal out of the way, you could argue. I mean, this is arguably the Capitals' best year since their Stanley Cup win in 2018. I mean, they're coming in with heaps of confidence now, and the perfect time, you could argue.
Absolutely. This is a great team. This is a team that wants to win. You can tell that. They've got a lot of great players all around the ice. They've got great people behind the scenes making it happen. So it's definitely one of the better teams in the NHL right now. And with playoffs coming up soon, I'll be excited to see if Ovi and his teammates can get it done and bring the Stanley Cup back to Washington.
Yeah, 100%. That is a great story there. And we'll move on now to one last segment. We'll stay on the ice, but we'll head a bit more locally. So over the past weekend, the Australian Ice Hockey League dropped the puck on season 2025, which is so its 25th anniversary season. A big congratulations to the AIHL and all of them and all the people involved there, and obviously some great games to open the season. I was fortunate enough to attend the Ices game against the Central Coast Rhinos. 9-8 in the end in overtime. Dramatic result by the Rhinos. It was one of those games that was just, you couldn't predict what was going to happen next. I mean, ultimately, I think the Ice were down by 3 by the end of the second period. They were up by 1 with 30 seconds to go or something like that in the end of the third. And next thing you know, overtime. And, I mean, it's a high scoring game, obviously. And it's just arguably, it's the perfect advertisement, not just for the AIHL, but for ice hockey as well in Australia, of all places.
For sure. It's what we all want to see. I mean, ice hockey's had a bit of a boom recently. You look at our Four Nations and how popular that was. You look just recently with Ovi. So, they're doing it pretty well in North America. And I can safely say we're doing it pretty well here ourselves. Like you said, that ice game against the Coast. I mean, I didn't know where to look. It was such an incredible game. I unfortunately couldn't be there, but I did see it. I did see the highlights. So, just an incredible performance. Well on the Central Coast, especially because they got battered the day before, I believe, was it 10-1 the day before? So to come back out on that ice and win 9-8 against an ice team who looked pretty good and that looked pretty good themselves, but Central Coast just got it done, proved that Their first game was just a blip in the pan, and they are back on now for hopefully a pretty good season. So well done to them.
I mean, yeah, it was an incredible result. And you talk about the boom and popularity in ice hockey. I mean, you could see it there in that crowd. There was there was not many spare seats in the ice house when I went, and I mean, yeah, it was a loud crowd, it was a passionate crowd. There was one that was roaring the ice to get a result. Ultimately, couldn't do it on home ice for the fans, but it was just. I mean, you talk about the growth ice hockey's had as a sport in Australia. I mean, Australia is not even a country to associate with ice hockey. We think of Australia, you think of the beach and the sun and that sort of thing. So I mean, yeah, the fact that this is where we're at now for a winter sport like ice hockey that it's with such an unprecedented amount of popularity. It's incredible to see. Absolutely.
For sure. And I mean, ice hockey, just give it a chance. It's an incredible sport. I mean, I can't skate. So when I see those guys out there skating like that, comes second nature to them, as well as being able to move the puck around, it's just incredible to me. It's a fast sport. It's a physical sport. It's got, it's got a great support base. So I'd recommend definitely going out to a game and choosing a team if you don't have one already, because it's an incredible sport and the AIHL has so much room to grow. Like you said, it's their 25th season, so it's only going to go up from here. So definitely tune in. We're lucky enough to be working with them, so give it a watch, and it's going to be a great season.
100%. And we'll throw up that AIHL league table now. Obviously, still early going. We've only played one weekend, but as you can see, it's the Perth Thunder leading the way with the Brisbane Lightning, Melbourne Mustangs, and CBR Brave following just behind. I mean, yeah, obviously it's still early in the season, but as you can see, it's panning out excitingly. There's been some great results, and we'd highly recommend you get out to a game. If you have a local team, obviously it's more difficult for the Sydney fans. Obviously, unfortunate circumstances there with the ice renovation at the Phillip Ice Skating Centre. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you can go check out a game, it is a great sport, a great league, and you'll find yourself just absolutely falling in love. I can definitely guarantee that.
For sure. I'm going to my first game this weekend, definitely looking forward to it. So, yeah, what Tin said, get it out, give it a watch. It's a great league, and it's only going to go up from here.
100%. And I think that we'll do it for this week's episode of Sportswatch. We thank you all for tuning in again, for supporting the show. And yeah, we'll see you again for more sports action here on Six News.